Thank you so much for joining the Surrey Board of Trade. I am Margot Gawley, Client Services Manager of Health and Technology District and Startup Surrey. I want to welcome you to this morning's Digital Impact Learning Lab Essential Techniques for Networkers in the New Normal. I wanted to remind you that if you have any questions during this session, please put your questions or comments in the chat function of the Zoom platform and we will get to them as soon as we can. If we are unable to answer your questions, we'll get back to you after the session is over. I acknowledge that we are in the treaty territory of the Tsawwassen First Nations and the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. As well, I acknowledge the Inuit and Métis Nations peoples who live and work on these territories. The Surrey Board of Trade is a Surrey city building business organization where we support business and bring business into the city. We are here to advocate for you, to instigate change at different levels of government, and to be your concierge of connections. Check our diversified portfolio at businessinsurrey.com. Again, my name is Margot, and I am going to talk a little bit about Startup Surrey, your sponsor for today. Startup Surrey is a volunteer network of innovative business partners and entrepreneurs passionate to collaborate and inspire innovation. Please reach out to our website at startupsurrey.org to learn more about becoming a member or to learn more about our partners and connect to resources that support startup businesses. Thanks to Surrey Board of Trade and other founding partners. I hope you all enjoyed the event today, and let's continue to inspire our growing entrepreneurial community here in Surrey. It is now my pleasure to introduce our facilitator this morning, Margaret Page, business coach and etiquette expert. Margaret, over to you.
Thank you so much, Margot. That was a perfect introduction. I really appreciate that. And thank you. Welcome to all those attending today. As Margot mentioned, my name is Margaret Page, and I've been a coach and trainer since 2003. But my heart and soul is in being an entrepreneur. And my first entrepreneurship was when I was 21 years old. And like many of you on the call today, it was all about results for me. And of course, business results. I think we came to that pretty honestly by our parents who said to us, we couldn't go out with our friends until we had done our schoolwork, until we had done our homework. So our lives, our generation has all been about results, results, results. And it wasn't until I had had several businesses and totally focused on results, although I knew relationships were important as well, but still it was, for me, overridingly, it was about profitable results and how I could make the business grow. It wasn't until I got involved with the not-for-profit world where I couldn't hire someone to do the job. I couldn't fire someone to do the job. It had to be because of relationships that I really, truly understood the power of relationships and the impact that building relationships can have. Now, of course, the term that we have is called networking. However, that is a negative connotation to many people, maybe because of the word working in there, and maybe it's networking. But I like to think of it as building connections. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I know that you have lots of insight as well. You've come to this point in your life that you've developed skills and strategies, techniques, and those that are on the call with us today would like to hear some of those as well. So I would love for this to be interactive. If we could start out by, I'd like to invite you to share what you would like to get out of our hour together. So if you could start and write in the chat, what are you hoping to get out of this session? And that way I can customize this specifically to those people that took the time today to show up and explore and be willing to grow in this area and learn some new tricks and tips. So go ahead and put in the chat what you would hope to get out of this session today. I'm going to wait. This is pressure for you. You know, it's not just about showing up and not getting involved, because isn't that what networking is all about, is getting involved and building those connections. So go ahead and put in the chat what you hope to get out of this session. I'm a startup entrepreneur and immigrant, and I'm looking at how to shed off my fears and shyness and build up more confidence in meeting and networking. Great. Okay. So what I'm hearing about that is losing fear and building confidence. Learn about the community and services for networkers. Okay. Well, we'll certainly ask staff at Surrey Board of Trade to help with that as well. How to communicate with people, check their comfort level about in-person meetings as economy opens up again. Absolutely. As an avid networker, always looking for new ways to make connections, Margaret. Don't have a negative connection to the word. Excellent. Well, good for you. Appreciate that, Nate. Some tips to build trust and confidence in the new and evolving virtual era. How to start in striking a conversation. What is the new normal for networking? All good points, and I'm glad that you shared with me what you hope to get out of this, because we want you all to leave with some golden nuggets. And so by you sharing what you hope to get, I can make sure that we can deliver on that. And the person that wrote in, it was Rona as well, to start up about striking a conversation. In my capacity as a coach and trainer, particularly my clients that come to me for etiquette training or manners training or charisma enhancement, conversation is one of the biggest challenges that some people have, or that hurdle that they need to get over to understand they communicate all the time. And how do you do it maybe when there's a little pressure on you? All right, so let's get started and make sure the share. All right. So if I could have someone put in the chat whether they see my screen clearly. I've gone on with the presentation and been challenged that the deck, yes, okay, the slide deck is showing, and I will keep watching for the chat as you go along. So if you have questions, or if you have something to add, a tidbit, I would invite you to participate and engage and share your success strategies, because success is a beautiful thing and we all want success, no matter what that is. For various people, it's different things. It could be financial, it could be having purpose and meaning, it could be related to your family. Success is different to people, and whatever it means to you, if you have it, you feel your life is meaningful. So today, of course, we're speaking about essential techniques for networking in the new normal. And I already invited you to share what you would like to get out of it. So the objectives, first of all, is understanding the value of networking for those that may have come here reluctantly. Perhaps your boss sent you here and said, we need to have more skills and ability in networking to grow our business. And some of you are here that already know the value of networking, and you just want to top off. What are the cherries on the top? How can you enrich even more? And we're going to be speaking about building connections on site and online, and nurturing your network, because that's a critical component. It's not only just making that initial connection, but how do you nurture that network? And we'll talk about that and why. But first, let's talk about the value of networking. And I threw this in because it was a worldwide survey, and some of you may be working beyond the boundaries of Surrey, you may be working internationally. And so it's important to understand, is this a North American thing? Does this go beyond? Where is what's relevant information? So 70% of respondents hired at a company where they were hired at a company where they had a connection. So that's how valuable connections are, even more so than your CV. And it's really important to build those connections. If you're looking for a job, even more important sometimes when you're hiring somebody, because if someone in your organization likes and trusts that individual, you've already got starting to build some trust, because someone else you trust, someone else you believes in this other individual or can recommend them. That makes a huge difference to you. Recently, I saw a post in LinkedIn that said, why bother putting recommendations on your CV? Because we all know you're only going to put those that recommend you. But those that aren't on your CV that are recommended to the boss or the leader, whoever's HR, who's ever doing the hiring, makes a big difference. And 80% of professionals say it's important to their career. That's even more important than a lot of other things, that believe in angels and a lot of other concepts. 80% is a huge in today's era. And of course, 61% of professionals, regular interactions can lead to possible job opportunities, even when you may not be looking. You may be in an organization, you may own a business, and not particularly looking to network to grow your business at this time, or to look for another job. But it's a valuable thing, and you just never know where ideas crop up to grow your business, start a new business. And of course, we're looking for that, is how can we support businesses and make a good business day in Surrey? So people are wired for relationship, both quantity and quality matters. And that was by the editorial director of Twitter. So it's just not the quantity, because some people are really eager and they're really proud to say, you know, they have 5,000 followers on Facebook or 10,000 on LinkedIn or whatever the case may be, but it is the quality of those connections as well to have an impact on your life. So let's talk about building connections online and on site. So the three things we're going to look at in this area is, what is your desired outcome? So when you go to an event, no matter what it is, or if you're not networking at an event, you're networking general overall. You might be networking on LinkedIn. You might just be networking in the community. It may not be an event, but it just may be networking in general. Have a goal for yourself. That's the very first starting place, because often people will end up at a networking event without a goal and leave without having accomplished a whole lot. So wherever you plan to network, if it's on LinkedIn, just by building connections, or on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram, or on site somewhere, set yourself a goal. And if you have a goal, a target to reach, then you will have results at the end of that versus just spending time. So if it's an online event, such as the Surrey Board of Trade, their networking opportunities, then set yourself, how many people would you like? Today, I'd like to meet 3 CEOs, or today I'd like to meet 3 new people. Whatever it is, today I want to meet Anita Huberman. set yourself a goal so that when you get there, that you're moving in the direction that you want to go. Know the outcome and why do I want to meet 3 CEOs? I need to expand my network so that my product is in the hands of more people. Whatever it is, know your outcome and your why. If you do, you will have much more success than if you just go because someone told you networking was important, or just because there was an invitation. Your mindset with how you go is really important. If you go to an event or you think, I'm not worthy of having a conversation, I'm not a good conversationalist, I never remember people's names, which is one of the biggest challenges that people often speak to me about. Or if I'm at an event, they'll say, I never remember names. And I always get them to say, in the past, I couldn't remember names, but now every day and every way I'm getting better and better at remembering names, because names are so important. But have that mindset. Someone else can be a good networker. You can too. Someone else can remember names. You can too. Anything anyone else can do, you can do too, given some time and work and energy. You can do whatever anyone else can. And so you need to go to any kind of event with the mindset of, I'm an interesting person. I have something of value to contribute. Whatever it is, make sure that you have a positive mindset when starting out your network. And so you could even write that down. You might even give yourself a name when you're networking. You could be Networking Nate, and you show up with that persona of someone that is very charismatic and someone that's eager to meet others, and people will be eager to be around you if you show up with a mindset like that. And of course, you need to know if you're meeting online or on site. For some people right now, online is still comfortable. People are not yet ready to go on site. Many people are not, and some that are. There are conferences, conventions happening, and of course, we're having them happen virtually as well. So we need to be prepared for both. And you and I'll have that opportunity to speak about both of those and how you prepare and what you can do in both those things. Having said that, the research that recently came out was that people prefer to meet in person. That is still the preference. And so we'll be driving towards that, even though you may be fearful right now, or those that work for you may be fearful to get out and start networking or start having those on-site meetings. We still have to ease them into that comfort level, particularly if they're employees that are feeling uncomfortable about it. It's the era that we live in that we really need to take care of our employees. And so do make them feel comfortable. Don't force them into doing on-site if their preference right now is online. And there are many, many opportunities to go online. But I do want to talk about that. Because of those preferences, we have what's called preferred methods of communication. It used to be that we would write a letter. Decades ago, of course, we would write letters to people because telephone was too expensive. And then we started using the telephone. We picked up the telephone all the time. Then email came into consideration, and now social media. In fact, email perhaps could be on the way out because it's so much easier to connect in Slack, in WeChat, in WhatsApp, in many other platforms. And we have our clients, we have our staff, that are perhaps communicate our staff in our in our organization, but we have clients that may be reaching out to us in multiple platforms. And so we need to what's called their PMOC, their preferred method of communication, know and understand them and meet them, what I call meet them at their bus stop. Because if you don't pick them up at their bus stop, they may not be along for the ride. And so if they're instant messaging you, text messaging you on Facebook, messaging you on WhatsApp, whatever, we have to be flexible. Our staff has to be flexible. We have to accommodate other people's mode of preferred method of communication and meet them in their model of the world. When we meet people, whether that is online or on site, we make up our minds about them just like that. That quickly, we have determined whether they're trustworthy, aggressive, or how competent they are. This was a study done in Stanford a number of years ago. We've already decided that about people in less than it takes the time to snap your fingers. That's the way the human mind works because of our background, where we were looking, is this an enemy? Is this a friend? Will this person keep me safe? And so we jump to those decisions about people because of our makeup of our brain. And so you've already decided things about me, probably already from the write-up that you had. And then when the video first went on, you made some decisions about me. You colored in some lines. The way I show up today, at the very first time we have the opportunity to meet, or when you show up anywhere for the very first time and you're meeting people, people have a tendency to fill in the rest of the lines. And I refer to it as using colored pencils. And we all know that colored pencils are difficult to erase. And so people have jumped to all these conclusions, maybe what kind of job you have, what kind of education you have, whether you're a pleasant person, whether it's somebody that you would want to meet on another occasion, whether it's someone you would want to have lunch with. You jump to all these conclusions. And afterwards, if your second or third visit with that person or engagement with interaction with that individual, if they show up very differently, we're still going to go back to that first meeting. It's like a 20 magnification, if you remember on your magnifying glasses, that you could bring someone in 20 times, because that's the way we're made up, to jump to conclusions, to put pieces together. And unless you show up repeatedly different, then we're going to go with our first impression. Having said that, it's easy if you show up in a bad humor time after time after that, and the first time you were in good humor, it will erode. It will erode. So you need to show up at your best all the time. And that means online as well, particularly in meetings. When we are online, you need to, even if you're not the speaker, if your video is on, people can see you. And so you need to be smiling. You need to be focused on the content. You need to be awake and fully present. And that'll help build a good first impression about you, even though you may not be the speaker. You may not be the chair of the meeting. You may not be leading the Surrey Board of Trade event. But you need to, if videos are on, you need to show up well to make that first impression of you stand out and be important. Now, when we're meeting on site, how we introduce ourselves to others, first of all, we need to line up head, shoulders, knees, and toes. We remember that rhyme from when we were young: heads, shoulders, Knees and toes builds the best connection with people. If you're offside from people, you're not going to get a strong connection as when you're lined up head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And in fact, if it's a stand-up networking event, when you want to meet somebody, those people that are lined up head, shoulders, knees, and toes, we encourage you not to, because chances are they've built some rapport. It's much easier to build rapport, to build that connection, to get those higher levels of conversation if your body is lined up. We have some brain cells that are matching up there. And so that's not the group that you want to interact with. But if you see a group off to the side and a person has one of their arm pointing in a certain direction, or particularly their feet, is what you want to be observant of. And so if one of their feet are pointed outwards, that means they're looking for their escape. The foot always dictates the direction that that person is getting ready to travel. And so if you're thinking, I want to speak to a group, look around those groups, and where the person's got their foot pointing outwards, saddle up to that person, next to that person, and that perhaps can give them the out to get out and give you the permission to slide right in. But when you're lined up head, shoulders, knees, and toes, it's a good connection, and leave those people to have that good conversation, that good networking. And so if you need to have a serious conversation with someone like your wife or your child or whatever, this is a good model as well. Line up head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And when you want to introduce yourself.
Bond. James Bond.
Who are you?
Bond, James Bond.
Thank you, Mr.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
This is the new banker, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
This was
My name is Bond. James Bond. My name is Bond.
the most famous line in movie history is, "My name is Bond, James Bond." And my encouragement to you is, when you are introducing yourself to someone, to say not necessarily your last name twice, but your first name twice. Hello, my name is Margaret Page. If they have heard it twice, they are most likely to, or chances are they will remember you more than if you said it once. And it is your job that people remember you, not their job to remember you. But your job is to make yourself memorable so that they will remember you the next time that they see you. If you have a difficult to pronounce name, I'm going to encourage you to find a nugget, device that will help them remember your name. If you give them that device, then they will remember it. My name is Gowrie. And then give the explanation or whatever it is to help them remember. Make it a visual picture, make it something. My name is Margaret, and Margaret is another name for Pearl. Sometimes Margarets are called Pearl, but I'm called Margaret. Now, Margaret isn't a difficult name for most people in North America, but for people in China, for people in India, for people in the Middle East, though that can be a difficult name. So always, if you have a difficult name, or it may not be difficult in your culture or in your part of the world, but wherever you are doing business, if it is hard for them to remember, it is your job to give them a reason to remember it. There is also a website called Pronounce Names. And so if you are sending emails out and you have a very long, difficult name, go to that website, either find the name that's already recorded, or you can record your own name and put it on your signature line on your email. And then that will give people that opportunity to pronounce your name correctly. Should you have a difficult name and people always mess it up, don't say it's okay, however you want to say it, because most people want to know. They want to know how to correctly pronounce your name. Be patient with them. You may have to say it 2 or 3 times. As you do, smile with them, make it fun, make it a game, but don't say it's okay, because we do want to know how to pronounce it correctly.
James Bond.
Who are you?
Bond.
And of course, eye contact is critical, not only online, but on site as well. Or I should say, not only on site, but online as well. It has been very difficult for all of us to move to the online and connect with that green dot continuously versus looking at people. And that's one of the reasons that we can get Zoom fatigue, is because we have so many people in such close proximity to us. Generally, if you're at an event, people are spread further. There's not so many that are close. But in this space, in this virtual space, we have people that are in our personal space because we have our device or our screen probably within an arm's length, or that's what I would encourage. And now instead we're connecting with the green dot, and eye contact is just as important here. So people feel that you are connecting with them versus that I'm looking at my own picture or I'm checking out what you're doing. On site as well. So we encourage about 60 to 70% of the time when you're speaking to an individual that you're making eye contact with them. Some cultures find that difficult, particularly if you are of Asian origin or roots that your family was. Particularly the Japanese were taught not to look people in the eye, but instead to be more humble is considered in that culture, and more reverent, bow your heads, or at least not to make eye contact with people of power or people of higher status as you. And in North America, that is not the case. In North America, we make eye contact with everyone. It is a sign of confidence, but be aware of that. If you're making eye contact with someone from a culture who normally doesn't make that intense eye contact, it can seem a little overpowering, a little too much, and you may be making them feel uncomfortable. If you come from a culture where you were taught not to make eye contact, rather than looking right at a person's eye, I encourage you to look under their eye when you're on site. If you look under the eye, you will feel comfortable and they will feel like you are looking them in the eye. I believe looking people in the eye to the degree that I know their eye color. If I don't know their eye color, then I'm not looking at them at the level and the intensity that I'd like to. If I do that, if I look at their eye color, I can build a relationship much quicker, faster, better. We can build rapport, what we call rapport, which is almost, it's easier to take people on a journey with you. It's easier to be in alignment with that person because of the value and the intensity of this relationship. Think about all the people, perhaps before the pandemic, that you might have walked by in a day, and they may have been persona non grata that you don't even know. at the end of the day, how many people you walk by, you ignored them, you didn't, and it makes sense. We can't be in contact with everybody, but those that we want to build a relationship with, we need to be able to ramp it up quicker, faster, better, because our lives are so filled with so many activities and so many musts in our lives in order to be successful. So eye contact is really important to get you to that next level of conversation, or to a level that's not just on that surface level of, yes, you are a person. I will say, though, I encourage you, and we did this more before the pandemic, is when you're opening doors for people, always make eye contact and a smile. It's amazing how you can change someone's day just by recognizing, wow, that's a person. And if you do that, you can shift other people's thinking throughout the day. There's a validation of some sort, rather than as we pass people by that we're not looking at them. And of course, the pandemic has created difficulty with that, because as we cross people on the street, we even crossed over the street so that we would maintain that 6 feet apart. Or in the grocery store, we may turn the other direction because we don't want to have that proximity of people. In the business world now, we have to find ways of safely building that connection, and certainly virtually is one way, and on-site, do it with regard and respect for your safety and their safety. Smiling is always important, always, always, and it's contagious. If you're on public transportation or you're at an event and you look over and you smile at someone, they'll smile back. It's natural for us to do that. You can begin to lift a whole entire room up simply by smiling. You create this ripple effect, and they will begin to smile as well. And when you are talking on the telephone, it is important to smile. Even though the person may not see you, they can hear it in your voice. And I encourage you to, if it's an important business meeting, if it's an important project that you're working on, stand up. Do not sit down for those important, so you have all the air and the capacity that you need. So meeting on site, you can decide, do you want to have elbow bumping? And I heard about this from Anita, and I did go to an event where they gave you buttons. Different colored buttons meant your comfort with things. And there are wristbands now, red, yellow, and green, that define how you want to interact. And many businesses are buying them. If you contact me after this event, if you're interested, I can send you the link to that. But so there are ways to define what your comfort level is, what your staff's comfort level is, and those you're interacting. So we can decide if we're comfortable with the elbow bumping. If we're really comfortable, we prefer hugging. That's our model. That's our business. This is the kind of relationship we had before, and we want to return back to that, particularly if you've been vaccinated. And then Air 5, what we're calling Air 5, is just putting your hand up in the air, and that's air fiving, and no contact, but it's sort of like the high five bump, but it's an air 5. And namaste, the Indian greeting, is always acceptable, and it's a safe greeting. The light in me acknowledges the light in you. And if that's your comfort zone and you want to use that in your business or networking, people know and understand that. And so please feel free to make your decision what your comfort level is, but honor other people's comfort level. If it's their comfort level to do whatever it is, meet them in their model of the world again. But handshaking, there's research and studies to show that handshaking with someone has the equivalent, lights up the same amount of space in your brain, or those familiarity spots in your brain, of 3 hours of conversation. So that hand shaking, those mirror neurons, they begin to fire, and you become your similarities start revealing themselves. So there's about 7 or 8 different kinds of handshakes. I'm just giving you the most critical ones now are the limp noodle. That's when you come in with a handshake and you haven't quite, got in there web to web with 2 quick pumps. And no one likes a limp noodle, but there are some cultures that if you come in too strong, this is particularly an Asian culture, you come in too strong, you're going to maybe come off as aggressive, domineering. And so be wary. And if you're young people, if you have teenagers, if you have young people entering the workforce in your place of business, they're in their 20s or whatever, chances are their handshakes are going to be a little weaker. And so you can help guide them and demonstrate to them what a good handshake is all about. The second handshake is called a politician's handshake, and Bill Clinton was famous for this. He would come in with the one hand and then grab you with the other hand on the shoulder, on the arm, or whatever it is. And some people are very uncomfortable by that because they check their wallets to make sure that the salesperson isn't getting the best of them. And some people like it. There is research that shows the study is called haptics. It's about touching people. So chances are, if a politician has touched you, whether that's a handshake or touching your shoulder, the likelihood of you voting for them is in the high 90%. We only touch people that we're comfortable with, that we like. And that is a brief touch. So that is a touch on the shoulder, on the arm, or on the hand. That's not anywhere else. I one time was working with a movie star who was telling me, a very famous director, if I said the name, that you would definitely know them. And this movie star said this director would come behind and put his hands in the small of her back to lead her on as they were going down the red carpet or whatever it was. And she felt very uncomfortable about him putting his hand on the small of her back. That's a little bit more intimate space. And of course, when you're wearing ball gowns and all those other things on the red carpet, that's an uncomfortable. So it's a brief touch on the arm or the hand, brief. Any more than that, there could be challenges that you don't want to cross over that line and have that misinterpreted in any way. That's a slippery slope to go down. Then we have the vice grip, and that's where someone grabs your hand so strongly, and I'm not sure if it's a motion of power, or I want to show you I'm more powerful than you, or whatever the case. It's not a feel-good handshake. Particularly women are offended by that handshake. Some men may really enjoy that. Again, understand who your audience is. But a professional handshake is web to web, and we call this the web. Web to web with 2 quick pumps. In the UK, it's a little more. They go for 3 pumps. And prior to the pandemic, of course, there's some cultures, it's 2 kisses. In the Netherlands, it's 3 kisses, and sometimes you don't know which cheek to start on. That can be difficult. North America, we don't have so much those challenges. We tend to do more of a hug if we're doing that intimate. When I'm doing live events and we have a couple people, I partner people up in the room, ask them to do their typical handshake, and for someone else to rate that handshake on a 0 to 10, how would you rate it? So that they get that feel and that essence of what other people are feeling about their handshake. It's not something we often talk to each other about. But I would suggest give it a try with a colleague, not necessarily with your family members. They may not tell you the truth, and maybe not a friend either, but a colleague. Say, would you mind giving me some feedback on my handshake? I just want to know. Now, I had a client a number of years ago that said to me, do I have to shake hands? I hate it. I absolutely hate shaking hands. You can, now that the pandemic has occurred, of course, it's totally acceptable not to shake hands if you are uncomfortable about that. But don't make up stories about, I have a cold right now, so I'm not going to shake your hand, because the next time, if you say, I have a cold right now, and of course, if you said you had a cold right now, we're all, soon as someone coughs or sneezes, we're like, our heads are whipped around like you've had whiplash. So be honest about your preference about shaking hands. I'm uncomfortable about shaking hands right now because of the pandemic. Maybe in a year or two, I'll get more comfortable with it. For right now, let's do an air 5 or whatever you're comfortable with. Be sure to share that. So this is, most of you probably know Robin Sharman, who's a Canadian author, coach, one of Canada's best coaches, and his book 5 a.m. Club, if you haven't read it, and many others of his are very good, but he said this, he says, the business of business is relationships, and the business of life is human connection. And what we're all needing right now is more connections, more connections. So how do we make that happen in this virtual space? So I'm going to talk to you right now about introductions. When you are introducing somebody else, the correct way is, I would like to introduce to you. So you start with the most honored person, or in the business arena, we might say, he who has the most gold, or she who has the most gold, the most honored person. So Bill Gates, I would like to introduce to you Anita Huberman. She is the most amazing CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade, and I'm sure that Microsoft would love to do business in Surrey. So it is about introducing, taking the person that's the most honored and starting with them. So whoever has the highest rank, if it's a CEO or the business owner or whatever, hi, business owner, I would like to introduce to you. And the second person is the person of lower rank, lesser honor, or whatever the case may be. Now, this is in the business arena. In the social world, we consider that male and females are in the social world. And so we give women a little bit the benefit, and we introduce women to others. And so they're the most honored. In fact, at one time, it was a woman would only extend her hand if she wanted to shake hands with the other individual. It wasn't a matter of both people extending their hands and shaking hands. The female used to determine, if I felt comfortable shaking hands with you, I'll extend my hand or allow you to kiss it. However, I may choose not to. So social setting, if traditional, what's sort of the MAME or our social culture has been passed down, women are the most honored. And in the business arena, it's really title or who has the most gold. And it's not about gender at all. It's a gender neutral world. So not you two. Bill Gates, I would like to introduce you to Anita Huberman, which would imply that Anita has a higher rank. So always think to first, to you, higher rank to next individual. So online, or whether you were online or on site, when you have been introduced or you've introduced yourself with your name, saying it twice, what is the common thing that we all say when someone says, "How are you today?" Put it in the chat, please. How are you today? How are you today? Someone says, "How are you today?" Share with me, not necessarily what you would, because you're here because you have higher awareness. What is the response that you most often hear when someone says, "How are you?" What is the most common response, particularly in Canada, I would have to say? Good. Oh, okay. Good, good, good. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Fantastic, Nate. Nate, if you're meeting with people and they say to you most frequently, "Fantastic," you hang around with an amazing crowd. They are fantastic. If that's their response, good for you. You've created a great network. But most people have a tendency to say fine. It actually becomes so automatic. They're not even thinking about how they are. It's just an auto responder. How are you? Fine. How are you? Fine. How are you? Fine. And so my encouragement in networking is be better than fine. I've jumped actually over to before my slides. So let me give you what's in this segment and do a reveal who you are. And we're going to talk about business cards, virtual and ones that you give out. So here we are. These people are better than fine. So find a way, any engagement you have with anybody, find a way to be better than fine. That's the challenge, is anytime you are meeting anyone, be better than fine. We have a tendency to, the mood or humor goes down to the person with the least, the most negative energy or the downest energy. And so if and you don't want that person to be you. So even if it's on a bad day, you've had something bad happen, when you are connecting with another individual, find out what is better than fine. I like to use my acronym, I call it MAGIC, find the magic. And that's the MAG, the moments of awe and grace I see. Whether that's walking down the street and I see the hydrangeas that are in bloom, or whatever it is, I see the smile on someone else's face, the beautiful poster that I've seen, whatever it is, find the magic and find the better than fine. All right. And online in particularly. And Mary Kay built an entire business out of make me feel special. That's what she taught all the people that sold Mary Kay cosmetics. She said, imagine everyone that you meet has a sign on them that says, make me feel special. A number of years ago, I got the opportunity to work on the set of An Age of Adeline with Brooke Lively. And in the research that I did, because it covered 100-year span, so I had to go look at finishing schools and their curriculum during that period of time so I could share with Blake how she may want to show up during that period of time. And what I discovered is that finishing schools used to teach women that when you approach someone on the street to think in your head, oh, how delightful. Oh, how delightful. Oh, how delightful. So that person, right now we're living in a world where people have so much to do and they're in overwhelm. When we're approaching somebody, this is of course pre-pandemic and it could be after the fact as well. Sometimes we're in, oh no, there's Mary. I don't want to talk to her right now because she wants me to do something. And so we may even try and advert and we may try and get away because others there may be expectations, or I'm going to a meeting. I'm always going to a meeting. I don't have time for that. But what they used to teach was, oh, how delightful. And what a much more glorious way to build connections and have those connections that'll make a difference in your life. Whoop. And the third picture is about the tea house. So the tea house in Japan has very, very tiny doors, and all have to enter through that door, which means the metaphor for that is we are all in the tea house the same status. There are no titles, there are no, so we're all now at the same level. So whatever we had outside the doors is gone, but in the tea house, we're all at the same level. And that is beautiful. I just realized the time has gone quickly by. Rona, is this 60 minutes or 90? It's 60, right?
60 minutes.
Yes, I'm going to have to perk it up here. I'll go quickly. I won't share you that story about Elvis Presley, but if you want to be interested, not Elvis Presley, it was Paul McCartney. If you want to be interesting, you have to be interested in others. Know what you stand for. So Superman stands for truth, justice, and the American way. And you need to know what you stand for, what your business stands for. And so when you respond to people, you say, I come from Surrey, the best city in the world, because they take care of businesses. Whatever it is, share. And so people understand what you stand for. Don't just say, I'm from Surrey, but expand so people know and understand where you come from. And so here's a business card, a physical business card, but there's a website of a digital business card that you could put on your social media profiles, that you can use wherever you want to use, on your email. And I'm not sure how long physical business cards will be in demand, given now that there could actually be bacteria. People are preferring the tap function. Even elderly people who didn't want to use tap before now are using tap. And so whatever we can to avoid contacts, so consider that using a digital one. So let's quickly talk about nurturing your network, and then we'll wrap it up. So caring about others is the best gift you can give yourself. So nurturing your network. Whoop. So the Dunbar number, this is some research, and a researcher by the last name of Dunbar explored that people on average can only have about 150 people in your network. So if you have way more followers on social media, chances are that they're not someone that you're going to contact on a daily basis or on a regular. But our networks generally are about 150, where we could say that's a good network. So don't worry about getting thousands of people or giving hundreds of cards, throwing cards around like Halloween candy or anything, because the research is that we can manage about 150. And Facebook, the research that Facebook tells us, that we only communicate with, on average, get this, you'll be shocked, 3 or 4 people on a daily basis. That's it in our Facebook social media. Sue Hudson had to leave. Thank you. I'm so sorry. So show up, step up, and stand out when you are connecting. And I'll just quickly wrap up here. So when you're connecting, do the job of asking questions. Don't feel you have to be the person conversing. You're the one that has to ask the questions and dig deeper into the other person. If you do that, they will think you're interested in them. And if you do more listening with your ears, you will be considered more charismatic than if you do a bunch of the network, of the speaking. Follow up, and people will forget what you said, and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And of course, and Maya D'Angelo made millions of people feel very good through her poetry, through her words. I'm going to wrap up here and just say thank you all for participating. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. You have my email, you have my number. I'm happy to give you a 15-minute complimentary session if you want to dig into deeper into any of the elements that we discussed today. And as we say at the Surrey Board of Trade, make today a great business day. See you next time. Rona, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Margaret, for being with us this morning and sharing your insights. We will be sending you the recording and the facilitator's contact information after this session. Many more of these type of sessions are coming up, so please be sure to check our website at businessinsurrey.com. Make it a great business day.